Zephyr Blackwood grew up in the quiet, unchanging rhythms of a small California town, where every day was colored by the warmth of family and the dependable companionship of his older brother, Cashin. Life was simple, their bond unwavering, a bond shaped by shared laughter, everyday challenges, and the comfort of growing up side by side. Cashin was more than just an elder sibling. He was Zephyr's guide, protector, and closest friend, always present to offer wisdom and support. But when Cashin left for college, the house grew quieter, and Zephyr was left with a growing sense of absence, a void that only deepened with each passing year. The periodic visits during holidays sustained their bond, yet nothing could fill the space Cashin's daily presence had once held. When Zephyr finally embarks on his own journey to university, his heart races with the hope of reuniting with his brother, ready to bridge the distance that time and change had carved between them. Yet, as they settle into their new lives together, Zephyr begins to experience emotions he cannot quite understand. What once felt simple and unbreakable slowly becomes shadowed by an unsettling complexity, a blurring of boundaries that transforms their sibling bond into something deeper, more intense, and altogether unexpected. My moniker is Zephyr Blackwood. I was birthed and reared in a diminutive, tranquil town on the shore of California. My town is not vast, all are acquainted, and life here is not excessively clamorous, but sufficient to sense the warmth and familiarity of the surrounding folk. My kin is not wealthy, yet ever dwells in contentment. My parents are diligent, affectionate individuals, perpetually fostering a home brimming with love and solicitude for my sibling Cashin Blackwood and myself. Cashin is my senior by 3 years, and since my tender years, he has consistently been my comrade and guardian. We harmonize exceptionally well, never experiencing any significant discord or disputes. Cashin is a considerate brother, incessantly fretting and tending to me in the minutest particulars. Whenever I encounter challenges, be it in study or life, he stands ready to assist. I recall the days he tutored me in cycling, the instances he patiently elucidated each intricate math conundrum, and the afternoons we frolicked together in the petite garden behind our abode. To me, my brother is not merely a relation, but also a dearest friend. Yet when Cashin reached 18, he was compelled to depart to attend university in the metropolis. This marked the inaugural instance our family lacked a member for an extended period. Gone were the days we matured together, cavorting in the garden or seated side by side in study. A void commenced to manifest in our modest dwelling, particularly for me. The chasm between us was not solely spatial, but also in life's cadence. Cashin now bustled with scholarly pursuits while I lingered in town, ensconced in my accustomed rhythm. Henceforth, we convened solely on singular occasions, especially during year-end festivities or principal holidays. Each reunion saw me eagerly anticipating, as if separation merely amplified our mutual affection. Perhaps distance rendered us more cherishing of our scant shared moments. Every holiday, Cashin invariably procured gifts, modest yet meaningful, making me perceive his care and love more intensely than before. Occasionally, it was a tome he knew would captivate me. Other times, a jacket he chanced upon that befitted me. The day I readied to embark for college, my heart could not conceal its exhilaration. No more prolonged separations between my brother and me loomed. I would reside proximate to him, sharing collegiate life's moments, akin to our shared childhood at home. Excitement and joy enveloped the entire lengthy voyage. As the bus halted, I peered out the window, discerning Cashin's familiar outline. My heart pounded upon recognizing his gaze. Alighting, I could not restrain my emotions. I dashed straight to him, forsaking all baggage, my stride directed towards one destination, the brother from whom I had been estranged for so long. Upon contact, the sense of distance dissipated. I promptly enfolded Cashin in a tight embrace, my entire being submerged in the security and familiarity only he could bestow. Cashin softly chuckled, patting my head as in our youth, and intoned warmly, "Billy, you've matured yet remained childlike." In that instant, age held no significance. I was merely inundated with joy at our reunion, no longer sundered or enduring protracted separation. That sentiment was profoundly soothing, akin to reclaiming a part of myself after years apart. After clasping my brother tightly, I felt all my anxieties and exhaustion evaporate. Cashin took charge of my bags, and together we made our way back to the lodging. Upon reaching the residence, the urban streets seemed lively and unfamiliar, yet Cashin's company made the experience more pleasurable. During our trek, he shared tales of his life there and the experiences he had gathered during his years away from home. I detected his self-assurance and maturity, which further bolstered my sense of security. Upon our arrival, Cashin guided me to his chamber, which, though compact, was snug, neatly organized, and fully equipped. I could feel his care infused in every nook of the room, from the study desk to the bookshelf to the bed. Everything was tidy, exuding warmth and familiarity. This attentive layout nurtured a sense of intimacy, as if the space was not solely his, but also designed to welcome me. This made me feel at ease in the novel surroundings. As siblings, we opted to dwell together to lend each other support in our everyday lives. For me, this setup was not merely practical, but also a substantial source of solace as I commenced my university journey. Having him by my side during this phase of significant transition made everything appear more navigable, easing my concerns. He had nurtured a sanctuary for me where I was certain I would not face trials alone. However, I progressively realized that life was not always as unruffled as I had envisioned. While cohabiting with him initially offered a sense of safety and familiarity, situations began to alter in unexpected ways. Initially, everything seemed typical. We attended classes together, shared meals, and exchanged daily anecdotes as if we were back home. Our parents were delighted to witness our mutual support in this new phase of our lives. Nevertheless, this closeness gradually morphed into intricate emotions that were challenging to express. The once unambiguous brotherly affection became tinged with an unfamiliar vagueness. Instances of sitting adjacent to each other and accidental brushes of hands evoked an unusual sensation within me. The emotions between us transcended mere familial ties, leaving me entangled in a complex blend of recognizable and unfamiliar feelings that I struggled to articulate. I attempted to convince myself that the mixed emotions were merely a misunderstanding, perhaps stemming from the change in living environment. However, the intimacy between us deepened, and those feelings gradually consumed my thoughts. Sharing too many aspects of life with Cashin made the sibling distance between us seem to dissolve within me. Confusion surfaced between feelings and morality, between what ought to be done and potent emotions. Although I was aware this might be inappropriate, I still couldn't entirely control myself. That tension didn't emanate solely from me. Cashin, despite being my brother, was still a man with his own thoughts. Living in the same space with me, a grown woman, also left him bewildered. I noticed it in his eyes, in his gestures, which further amplified the confusion in my heart. Not only Cashin, but I myself gradually couldn't deny being entangled in complicated emotions. The intimacy between us, the unconscious repetition of moments, blurred the line between brotherly love. Initially, I tried to disregard it and reassured myself that everything would be fine, but the whirlwind of emotions and guilt intensified, engulfing us with no apparent escape. Then one evening, the feelings between us escalated to a new level. After dinner and some casual conversation, I retired to my room and drifted off to sleep, but in the middle of the night, a faint sound from the other bed roused me. In the faint light filtering through the window, I saw Cashin still awake, sitting quietly, his eyes filled with something indescribable. "Cashin, what's the matter?" I asked softly, my voice still somewhat groggy, yet unable to mask my puzzlement. He looked at me for a moment, then sighed, approached, and sat beside me, his gaze steady. I sensed an inexplicable tension between us. He spoke in a low, resonant tone, his words catching me off guard. I inquired again, my heart overwhelmed by an indescribable sensation. He remained silent and then gently took my hand. He was warm and tender, as if seeking to convey something difficult to express. "Have you never discerned a singular bond between us?" he queried softly, his eyes aglow with an unfamiliar ardor, causing my heart to pound, yet I maintained my equanimity, keeping my hands steady in his. "Cashin, I am unsure, but this is unseemly," I asserted, endeavoring to remain calm despite the profound emotions we harbored. Cashin gazed at me, his eyes brimming with an undeniable magnetism. "I understand," he whispered, "but whenever I am with you, I cannot suppress this sensation. Have you never felt it?" I hesitated to respond, feeling his grip on my hand tighten in the ensuing silence. I, too, acknowledged an ineffable connection between us. Our gazes locked as if the world had dissolved. "Cashin, perhaps this is not destined to be," I said gently, yet I could not avert my gaze from him. "However, I cannot deny this feeling," he replied with a soft smile, eyes filled with affection. "Neither can I. Sometimes I ponder if these feelings have always been present, we just never noticed. We allowed our emotions to guide us, sharing a profound moment. The connection was impossible to deny in the stillness of the night. We were united, experiencing a special bond that neither of us had ever dared to acknowledge. That moment was a harmony far beyond the boundaries of ordinary siblings. When dawn broke, we understood that this relationship had transformed into something intricate and difficult to define, not easy to refute. That night altered everything. From attachment to an undeniable sense of unusual affection, from then on, our relationship shifted dramatically. Whenever we had the chance, we spent private moments together, sharing feelings and empathy that we both treasured. That connection, which grew stronger and stronger, seemed undeniable. The boundaries had blurred. For the subsequent year, everything proceeded quietly. No one in the family or among friends detected anything unusual, but as Cashin approached graduation, things began to change. He secured a job far away, causing us to see each other less frequently. From then on, every time we reunited, even briefly, the feelings between us remained as deep as before, and the distance only intensified the emotions. Life continued, and I understood that things would change. When I entered my second year of college, I met Henry, the person who would alter my life forever. When I met Henry, I gradually realized that the relationship between Cashin and me could not endure indefinitely. That was the moment I understood that the attachment to Cashin, no matter how deep, would eventually conclude. Henry was 26 years old at that time, a promising young entrepreneur. Despite his youth, he had established a solid career for himself and exuded confidence and insight. Whenever he appeared, Henry always captivated others, not only because of his composed demeanor but also because of the way he resolved everything with intelligence and ingenuity. We met by chance at a conference that I attended with a few friends. Henry was the keynote speaker, and throughout the presentation, I was captivated by his manner and his ability to address complex issues. After the seminar, we accidentally bumped into each other as we were exiting the room. Henry smiled politely and apologized, and the conversation flowed naturally, as if we had known each other for a long time. That was the beginning of our relationship. From that point forward, Henry increasingly became a part of my life, and soon we commenced a romantic relationship. Although initially, I still harbored feelings for Cashin, Henry's presence grew more pronounced and significant. He offered me a sense of stability, security, and tranquility, things I had always sought. We shared aspirations and ambitions for the future, and Henry instilled in me the belief that I could construct a fulfilling life with him. After spending some time together, I realized that Henry was the person with whom I could envision spending the rest of my life. As for Cashin, although my feelings were intense, I understood that our relationship could not persist. That sentiment, though extraordinarily special, had grown too convoluted and inappropriate. I recognized the need to let go and advance into a new life with Henry, the individual I believed would bring me joy and a stable future. Faced with reality, I acknowledged the necessity of dissolving the emotional ties that had bound us for an extended period. One afternoon, when Cashin returned home for the holiday, I determined to have a conversation with him. The tension weighed heavily on my heart, yet I understood this was essential. I approached Cashin, sat across from him, and forthrightly expressed my thoughts. I revealed my feelings for Henry and the future I envisioned with him, while also emphasizing that despite the significance of our relationship, it could no longer endure. Cashin listened attentively, his expression grave yet devoid of resentment. He seemed to have anticipated this moment. After a brief silence, he nodded in agreement, acknowledging the necessity of terminating our relationship. Although we exchanged few words thereafter, we both comprehended that it was time to revert to our respective roles as siblings. Despite the difficulty of this transition, I ultimately felt a sense of relief, knowing we had both arrived at the correct decision. Gradually, we reverted to a normal sibling relationship. On the surface, everything appeared simpler. We no longer mentioned what had transpired, and each time we met, we maintained a reasonable distance, engaging in light conversation as if nothing had occurred. Occasionally, we would dine with our families or sit in the living room watching television, but there was always an unspoken silence between us. Everything seemed stable, yet internally, it remained fragile. Even though the relationship had concluded, I still experienced an indescribable sensation each time our eyes accidentally met. I felt confused, as if things had never truly ended. There were instances when merely hearing his footsteps approaching would stir an inexplicable feeling in my heart. I told myself that I had moved on, that our relationship had returned to its proper role, but in truth, that sentiment had never fully subsided. Although outwardly peaceful, internally, I remained entangled in complex emotions and occasionally tormented. We may have ceased, but I had not entirely escaped the haunting of what had transpired. Not long after I completed my university studies, Henry proposed, and our nuptials transpired with the blessings of kin and companions. Cashin was also in attendance, standing quietly at a distance, smiling and extending his felicitations. Now, I have embarked on a new phase of my life with Henry, the individual I love and trust, and my existence is gradually steadying. What transpired in the past has now become a lesson, and I am aware that I made the correct choice to extricate myself from that liaison to progress towards a more promising future. Through all that I have experienced, I have comprehended that there are errors we must confront to grow. Those missteps have instructed me about emotional limits and the significance of upholding principles. Occasionally, in life, we are readily enticed by things that are challenging to resist, but it is essential to discern when to desist to avoid losing ourselves. I do not seek absolution from anyone because the paramount matter is that I have faced my blunders and discovered a means to rectify them. Henry is an integral part of this transformation. He aided me in understanding the worth of a genuine bond where sincerity and enduring love form the bedrock of contentment. Thanks to Henry, I grasped that not all sentiments should persist, and sometimes relinquishing is the path to serenity. Post-nuptials, my life progressively stabilized, and we commenced planning for the future, establishing a home, and contemplating progeny. Here, the tale between Cashin and me is now a bygone episode, a fragment of my recollections that I retain deep within my heart. What occurred will perpetually remain an indelible mark, but I have learned to accept and proceed. Cashin and I abstain from discussing the past, and we both recognize that the affiliation has conclusively terminated. Pondering my personal chronicle, I aspire to convey a lesson gleaned from my arduous ordeals and challenging determinations. It is facile to become entangled by overpowering emotions, particularly when those closest to us function as our primary wellspring of comfort and backing. Nevertheless, amidst the trials and tribulations, I have realized that preserving moral standards and instituting emotional boundaries is vital for safeguarding both ourselves and others. Certain sentiments necessitate governance. One must not permit a transient moment of vulnerability to culminate in excessive repercussions. The crux lies in recognizing when to halt, thereby nurturing relationships that genuinely foster joy and tranquility. I have opted to forsake the past, embrace this wisdom, and stride towards the future with the person I hold dear. This is my aspiration for all individuals as well.